What's up, everybody? I'm Avatage, and welcome to another episode of the HLTB podcast. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Pokepaw.
Hello.
We're going to have a pretty regular episode this time around with our completions, which is only going to be me, our retirements, which are considerably empty, and most of our focus will be on what we've been playing and haven't finished yet this week. And then we're going to talk about some Kickstarter and crowdfunding stories from our own experiences, perhaps, and maybe others that we've come across as well. And we'll wrap everything up with another episode of our next round of our guessing game, where Paula's going to quiz me and test my memory. And I'm scared. I'm always scared. I'm still not comfortable with this.
Come on, you won last round. It cannot be that bad.
True. I have to remember. But I'm the only one who's completed anything this week, so I'm going to take it away with a couple of little weird games that I played, which are quite short, which is kind of the only reason I actually completed them. The first one is a game called Gold Rush, which was originally released in 1988 and is a point-and-click adventure. I played Gold Rush Anniversary, which is a remastered version that was made in 2014. It's one of those games I can't remember how I got it, but it was in my library, and so I found it and went, "Hey, I'll play that. That seems interesting." Because I've been on a bit of a point-and-click adventure kick lately, where I've been having fun playing a few of them. And Gold Rush it's kind of fun to play if you're like me and you enjoy old 80s point and clicks despite all their problems, but it's not one I'd be telling anyone to go out and play, even if you are a fan of point and clicks, because it's a bit dodgy, to say the least. And it's
what do you mean?
It's very 80s design. So the story is that you play as a guy in, I think it's like Gold Rush era America. So whenever that was. I'm ignorant to that history, but even after playing the game, I can't remember because I didn't pay attention. So basically, you're a guy in New York, in old-timey New York, like steamboat kind of times, and you get a letter from your brother who has gone west to, look for gold, basically saying something like, come find me, we'll strike gold together, we'll have a good time, cool. So the very first thing you do in the game is sell your house to get some cash, and then figure out how to get a ticket from New York around to California. So as you can imagine, that's quite a journey. And you kind of have three choices on which way to go. You can either go across the land, so take a train, or you can take a steamboat and either go all the way around South America or go through the Panama Canal, essentially. Or through Panama. This is before the canal, so you have to kind of hop off and hike your way across the other side and then get on another boat and, go around. So it's very much a kind of true to history kind of story, because I'm sure a lot of people did this sort of thing. And it seems quite accurate as far as the setting and the design and, that sort of thing. But it's janky enough that you have to do a lot of trial and error and kind of hunting the screen for hotspots and things to click on, because it's not very clear. But it was fun enough. If anyone does decide to play it, I'd say save often, because especially in parts like when you get to Panama, you've got to kind of hike through the jungle to get to the other side get to the other ocean, to get to the Pacific Ocean side. And part of that is, if you take the wrong path, a snake will drop on you and kill you. And there's nothing really telling you that other than when it happens. Or like there's one bit where you've got to cross a river, so you kind of walk through the river. It's a little bit discolored throughout to show you the way, but if you go to the wrong spot, you'll fall in and drown. And it's game over and you have to reload a save, so hopefully you've got one close by. And it's that kind of thing where it's that old kind of game where when it ends, and there's no checkpoints. It's just, there is an autosave feature, but it's not very liberal. It's only on like major milestones. And then, you eventually go to California, and your first order of business is to get yourself like a pan for panning for gold. And that's where you enter the most annoying part of the game, which is there's this basically a huge map that you can't see because you're just moving from screen to screen. So imagine a grid of, say, 30 by 30 grid, and through that grid, and that's the map, and basically each square of the grid is a screen, and there's nothing to tell them necessarily apart except there's a river that goes through some of them, like a horizontal line of them, and the rest are just all grass and trees. And somewhere in there is a town, and somewhere else in there is a hut where your brother that you're coming to find used to live. But otherwise, you're basically free to your own devices to kind of just wander around and see what you can find. And it can be a bit frustrating because you might you might go across like 20 or 30 screens to the right, only to find that nothing was there. And so you go, maybe like 10 south and then across another 20 back to the west. And, you're just wandering around aimlessly looking for stuff. And part of it is to find gold as well, because you go to the river and you pan for gold, and you get lucky maybe every 10th time you pan for gold. So
Yeah.
it's like a whole thing again where, you click and hit, and he goes over and like pans for gold in the river, and then he's like, I found nothing. And he clicks somewhere else and he walks over there and pans for gold and goes, I found nothing. And you keep doing that until you go, I found gold. And then you go to another screen. But depending on where you go, like each sector has, if there's already another prospector kind of panning for gold or digging for gold, and you try and find gold as well, they basically consider you a thief because that's their claim. So you get put in jail and it's game over. So so you're wandering around trying to find empty screens basically with no people on it, so you can find gold, and it's like a random chance anyway. But that's how you've got to find enough money to then go buy your supplies and get yourself a mule, and then eventually find your brother deep down inside a mine. And that's pretty much the end of the game. Then you found him, he struck gold, and you're like, cool, I'm here, and high five, and that's that. Game over. So yeah. It's lacking in many ways, but it was interesting to play because I like that kind of thing anyway. And I'm actually thinking of playing like some original point and clicks like Space Quest and King's Quest, and getting real old school, getting real 80s with it. So yeah, this was a nice little intro to that. But again, even the remaster, I wouldn't necessarily recommend to anyone. And the only other game I finished was a little indie game called Escort Yourself Out. This is a free game on itch, and it's essentially a game about mental health. It's very much one of those games where the developer has made it to talk about their own mental health issues and struggles and whatnot, to the point, I'd say maybe 80% of the game is literally them telling you about their mental health issues and struggles. You're just clicking through screens, like reading text for most of it. And it's them going, hey, this happened to me and I get these anxiety attacks and I do this and I do that. I sound much more jovial than it probably is. But, and then you play, the cool thing to me, the thing I liked about it, because that stuff I get a bit like, as much as I have empathy for people who struggle with certain things, I don't need you to write pages and pages and pages to tell me about it in a game kind of thing. Like, I'd rather read a book. And that's fine. That's just whatever. I didn't really connect on the personal level that maybe other people would. But the actual gameplay I thought was really cool, because it's essentially, the reason it's called Escort Yourself Out is because you play essentially through a couple of very short sequences where there's an older version of the dev, who's the main character, basically guiding a younger version of themselves through a series of scenarios which are quite triggering for them emotionally and mentally. So I kind of like that as an idea, like your adult self kind of helping out your child self to, get through things that are perhaps confronting or depressing or upsetting or, whatever. And being able to play that out in like a real kind of form is actually kind of fun. or satisfying, or just a good way to communicate that idea, I think. And so there's things you can do while you're walking through each scene, which is essentially all you do is walk from left to right. But as you come across certain scenarios, and there could be triggers for, there's some eating disorder stuff in there, there's some anxiety related stuff, and some other like psychological triggers and that sort of thing. So you might go past something which is quite triggering for someone with an eating disorder, and if you press a button while you're, helping yourself go past, your older self will start talking to your younger self and be like, it's okay, it's all good, and you don't have to worry about this, and you're okay as you are, and all that kind of stuff. And if it gets really intense, because you've got like a stamina meter, I guess, like how much willpower you have left to deal with this sort of shit. And if it gets too much, you can hide. So you can kind of, once per level, you can hide away for a minute and like regain some stamina, and then kind of move on. And again, push a button as you go past stuff, and you'll be able to talk to yourself and just be like, it's all good. Like do that whole self-talk thing to kind of get through potentially triggering situations. So it's kind of cool in that way. Like, and I always like a game like this where it's very short. It's like, it took me like 8 minutes to play, but it's an attempt to basically communicate and deal with mental health issues, obviously, and one person's experience with that and how they've kind of creatively imagined it into this game, which I actually really appreciate. Whether I connect very well or not doesn't really matter, because I think the appeal is that it's a very kind of personal story that someone's telling, and it's very, puts them in a very vulnerable position, I would imagine. And it's just interesting because I think we learn more about all this sort of stuff by, hearing these stories and encountering these sorts of things. So that's always a good thing in my book.
Yeah. Also, I'm actually investigating a little bit about mental health or like mental conditions and stuff like that in video games. And there's quite two extremes about the thing, like about how they are represented. So I'm decide to really drive the point home by writing, like escort yourself out, since it did, like with balls and walls of text.
Yeah, very much
But
so.
my favorite one is when it's show, don't tell. As in, they kind of like use the sensations of their sometimes mental illness, mental condition, whatever, and try to convey either like with the artistic direction or like by certain cues in dialogue, things they're going through.
Totally.
And I feel like that's the more powerful way to actually convey what that mental illness or mental condition entails. One such example, I'm trying to remember on which of Cecilia Richards' games it happened, but there's one game where the protagonist is quite literally like facing some kind of depression or anxiety crisis, and the way it is represented, it almost lets you feel a little bit of that anxiety, which I guess, like for someone who went through the same thing, might come across as quite triggering, and like may make them like remember stuff they rather not. But like for someone who hasn't gone through it is such like almost like a crude and real feeling of what happens.
Well, and I think that's why I agree with you. I think that this game didn't quite hit me as much because, like I say, most of it was just pages of text of the developer basically just writing about their own experiences. And as interesting as that is, it didn't really, I guess, the actual gameplay sections where, you're escorting your younger self through potential scenarios, that kind of connected a bit more with me. And I really liked that because it, by doing that, I kind of got to, even though it didn't trigger me or freak me out or anything, it just I managed to connect with it a lot easier, I think, than just reading a bunch of text about someone's experience, which is also interesting and also very valid. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm poo-pooing it too much, but yeah, I think because part of the, I think, joy of, like you say, showing and not telling is that I can kind of interpret it a little my own way, and I can add myself into it a little bit to connect with it a bit deeper. And even though anxiety isn't something that I personally have dealt with in a medical kind of way, like, you know, we all get anxious sometimes, but it's not been a huge problem for me. Unlike I've dealt with depression and stuff in the past, which is different again. But yeah, so being able to connect myself in a little way is, I think, a lot more powerful than just reading about someone else's kind of experience, as interesting as that is. Like, I don't want to discount it completely. So yeah, it's a good little game, and it's really quick. And I'd say, especially people who are into game design and that kind of thing, it's worth playing because it's a cool little. The actual gameplay sequence is really cool, and it's a cool idea, and it is really short and it's free. So it's very much a, you know, proof of concept kind of game. But definitely worth checking out if you are interested in, you know, how someone else can deal with those sorts of things and put them into their games. So yeah, that was interesting. But that's all I've completed, just those two short little games. Haven't retired anything, although I did come close, but we'll talk about that when we move on. But Paula, you've been playing a few games. Let's hear about them.
Yeah, I mean, two of them are non-replay stuff. The other two are replay stuff.
Cool.
One of them in a different shape, but whatever. The first of them is Bokuda, which is a two-player co-op game where you take control of these two kids that have like quite different backgrounds. Like one of them, so far, seems like there's like problems at home, even though like his family is like wealthy enough, I guess. The kid itself doesn't have a lot of attention and care from the parents. It seems like the parents like keep fighting. Well, on the other side of things, the kid that I'm actually playing as has like a healthy family relationship, but money is not like a constant worry, but it is like the kid like realizes that they can't always get like that new trend game because money is important to it and stuff like that. So we actually saw a lot of reels of this game on Instagram and got interested in it because it is quite messed up in how it presents itself. So after the kids go on this little adventure, things happen, and then they start seeing the world in quite literally a different light. The one that I'm playing as sees everything like almost like a post-apocalyptic robotic thing. And all the other characters and themselves, well, and themselves included, look like robots. While on the other side, the other kids sees thing like in a almost like in a fairy tale kind of way,
Cool.
with some very messed up things in uh on some parts. More on that later. But for example, one of the first things that that kid told the other kid was, "Hey, you're not gonna eat me, right?" Because he sees himself as a tiny little bird, and the other kid is like an anthropomorphized bear, which
Cool.
might be quite scary if you don't know what you're looking at. Um, so first of all, the kids see the world in two entirely different ways. This game has no a split screen, so you have to try to communicate to the other player what the hell you're seeing and how they can help you. This is kind of like a puzzle platform and game, by the way. And the game takes the concept of when you're trying to talk to someone about a certain thing, and sometimes it feels like you're talking about two different things entirely because of how much your context, I guess, or like your perspective varies, and makes a game out of it. And I found that like quite ingenious,
Yeah.
in a way,
Sounds very
because
cool.
of how the overall gameplay experience goes. And there are times where you the two of you are able like to talk to a character each and try to see like their side of the story,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to try to make a decision, ideally without communicating with the other player, because we actually cheated a little bit like on the first one because of how different our perspectives were after talking to the characters in question.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up cheating a little bit just to see like what kind of information we got from each of them, and it was like, holy crap! Now I see what this game is trying to do. So yeah, the game itself looks kind of cute, especially like the fairy tale esque part of the game. Except that it has like a couple of things that are quite messed up. Like one of the achievements is called "What a Cute Dog," and on my side I see like a little metallic, like robotic dog with a little platform on its back that rises and goes back down. When that platform rises on my side, what my boyfriend sees on his screen is that the dog's skeleton kind of like rises and makes like a little platform, and he has to step on the dog's bones to go like to the higher level. And I was like, yep, that will trauma to your life, or to your day to day. Or for example, there are times where one of us sees like the world in a different way, in the sense of there's like a giant pit that we cannot go through.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is that I was just walking, and suddenly my boyfriend stopped walking. And he was like, whoa, 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 what are you doing there? Why you're walking on air? And I'm like, there's perfectly good ground here, good sir. And he was like, no, 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 there's a chasm there. So, in a way, you have to try to move things around to help your partner like to trust their version of the world. Well, and at some points, it like each of if you take turns into helping the other out in a way. So you have to consider how each of you looks at the world and what effects each character has on the world around you, and then do the most out of it to solve the puzzles. So, quite an interesting game.
Mm.
I am glad I was stuck with the robotic part of it because it seems it has less messed up things. Like, for example, I was like, "Hey, there should be something like to fall onto." So, and I see like a little bit like of springs, um, of metallic springs, so I can like fall onto that. And he was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. There's a dead bear over there." And I was like, oh crap." Okay, let's call that a teddy bear. Move that teddy bear over here.
Cool.
So yeah, um, I'm quite happy that I'm stuck in the world that I am at, because he has seen some shit at this point. So yeah, I'm still playing Beauty and Rising Flower Kempe. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have a lot to talk about yet because I'm on my way to Benke's route. So what I'm going through is very similar to the first route of Neritsune.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, not much to say there. I didn't do my research either, so I still don't know what kind of like history background there is to this game. But anyway, the other game that I'm playing, and this is quite the replay. It's the White Door, another of
Mm.
the Rusty Lake games. And it is quite different from the usual Rusty Lake games because you are on this white room looking like from top-down perspective, and you have to
Oh,
move your character around to get to places where the point and click stuff is. And you're I'm not gonna spoil much, but you're in kind of like a mental hospital, and you have to follow a routine, and you have to gather information from your room to answer questions and stuff like that. Um,
cool.
I'm at the point where the routine starts to break a little bit, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, that's the next one that I've got to play on my list. And
Yeah,
I'm even keener now if I know it's a little bit different as well. So
yeah, it is a doozy. That's all I'm gonna say. But
nice.
it is fun because you still have, if even though it's quite different, you still have like references to other games, and also you notice that the other games have a little like little hints and winks about this game too. So
Cool.
um, it's been a time. And finally, I'm replaying Avila Justice Ace Attorney, but this time around, I got it on the Switch because um the a while ago we got a release for the first Ace Attorney trilogy, the HD version on pretty much everything.
Hmm.
Xbox, PC, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, all the good stuff. And finally, we got Apollo Justice Ace Attorney trilogy that has, well, Apollo Justice Ace Attorney, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Dual Destinies, and Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice. And those are uh, another trio of beloved games. And we were talking about a friend, like we were talking about this with a friend, but we are actually like quite happy that these games are getting like the recognition we deserve. They deserve, sorry, because when we played them back in the 3DS days, these games didn't even get like a physical edition or like a physical release over here in the West. And
Hmm.
so they are like less known that the of the prior trilogy. Well, and we're like pretty much the only ones here in our circle of friends that were playing the thing. Now everyone knows about Ace Attorney, and that's they should. And
Mm.
we are just happy to see that. And I also got like the physical Japanese version because it is a multi-language thing.
Nice.
So weirdly enough, the Ace Attorney series still doesn't have a Spanish version. Like why? Why wouldn't it? But anyway,
Yeah.
um, so I'm playing this in English. Not that I would play it in Spanish if I had the chance, because I'm just used to the English version. Um, but yeah, just after I paid for, yeah, like I pre-ordered and got the Amazon gift card and paid for this in full before it got released. Like a couple of weeks later, they actually announced that there would be like a Western version of it, like a USA version of this. And I was
Cool.
like, well, fuck it, I got the Japanese version because I got the Japanese version for the other trilogy. So whatever. I think it was like cheaper too. So
Nice. That's
or
always
like
good.
either cheaper or it costs around like the same price. And since I got this chip with the priority shipping, because if you're from Chile buying from Amazon Japan, you only get priority shipping. Um, I got this like a few days after the release versus the 2 weeks or so that I would have to wait on uh, Amazon USA. But anyway,
Yeah, cool.
in Apologize Sister Journey, I think this is the first mainline series, like mainline game where you play as a different character. Because in the first trilogy, you pretty much play as Phoenix, right?
Mm.
There's one case where you temporarily take control over another character because Phoenix Wright is, I'm gonna say, indisposed for that specific day of the case. But other than that, Phoenix Wright is very much the protagonist. That is not the case in Apollo Justice Ace Attorney. You are Apollo Justice, the newbie attorney, defense attorney, with the courts of steel because he does like this daily training just before he goes into court, and then it speaks with a raspy voice. But anyway, and is this a spoiler? Well, let's just say it takes like it. I think it takes place like 6 or 7 years after the original trilogy, if my memory serves right, because they haven't like quite said how much time has it passed like since the first game, but I have memories from my other playthrough, which is quite nice. And you have to defend one of the main characters of the prior trilogy. So yeah.
Interesting.
And it is quite interesting because the first case you have like a very similar setting in a way to the original Ace Attorney, as in you are a newbie at your trade, and you have your mentor figure right beside you, and you have to defend someone from murder, like from the accusation of being the murderer, pretty much. And of course, they couldn't be the murderer because this is like the prologue, so the case is quite clear cut in that way. But it puts a twist on things. Let's just keep it at that.
Cool.
And I just want to keep going at this game because there are like so many characters that either you see for the first time and they're like fan favorites, like Clavia, who is like the what was the word? It's called a fiscal in Spanish. The prosecutor? Yeah, the prosecutor.
Yep.
Who is the prosecutor of this game, and Holy Bananas. He has like an animation of playing like air guitar, and whoever was in charge of that took a special care that the animation was as cool as it could be. You also see a returning character from the first game, who I'm not gonna name because it was quite a nice surprise. Specifically the DS version. But also there's like such an array of new characters that are like so lovable in their own way, or some are just playing dickheads, but whatever. But even though you're playing as a different character, it is still Ace Attorney. It has the same mechanics, the same charm the original Ace Attorney trilogy had. And of course, it has like either the funniest moments or heart-wrenching moments in the story. So for whoever has played the original Ace Attorney trilogy and is like on the fence about getting this one because of how different it can be in some ways and how you don't see like the same characters all the time, pick this up. Like, for real, you're missing out here. And I'm talking about like, and even just if you haven't played Apologist, just go for it. Like, you're gonna like, even though like I feel like some people see it like a little bit as a flagship of the franchise, I still feel like it is a very worthwhile game to play. Like the Ace Attorney series has this thing that there aren't any bad games. There are games that are less enjoyable for some people, but the quality is still there. The Ace Attorney soul is still there. So go pick that up.
Cool.
And that's the end of my TED Talk. I am sorry, I got quite fired up about the Ace Attorney series.
It's good. It's good to hear about because I'm playing the Ace Attorney trilogy on and off. I have been for a while, just on PC, and I've never
Mm-hmm.
played them before. So this is my first time playing any Ace Attorney stuff. So once I'm finished with them, depending on how I feel about it, I'll keep it in mind and
Yeah,
maybe get some more.
definitely. If you kind of like the game, but you would like something a little bit different, I would
Mm.
recommend jumping straight into the Great Ace Attorney games because they have slight differences to their mechanics, but it is enough for people who don't quite enjoy the first Ace Attorney trilogy because
Mm-hmm.
usually because of the setting or how the mechanics of the card room go. But the Great Ace Attorney has like enough differences to make things enjoyable who didn't find things enjoyable in the other games. And it has enough things in common with the other games so that fans of the series like still enjoy it. So it's kind of like a nice middle ground. If you like just all playing Ace Attorney shenanigans with a gimmick of choice on each game, go get the second trilogy.
Yeah. Well, I've been playing mostly new stuff, but I keep diving back in and out of Ghostwire Tokyo because it's the kind of game that I want to spend more time in than I can ever really commit with at the moment. So I don't end up, I play it for a bit and time just like slips away. Like I really enjoy the game, what I've played so far.
Yeah.
And it's one of those games where I start playing it and then, I look at my clock and it's 2 hours later and I don't feel like I've really done much, even though I've been enjoying myself. But it's, the time just goes really quick. And I feel like I could just play for another 4 hours at a time or something, but obviously can't afford it all the time. So I think that's why I keep jumping in and out of it, because I was thinking about it last time when I did play it this week, because I had such a good time and I was like, yeah, I really should spend more time playing this, but for whatever reason, it's got that thing of I know I need to spend more time in it, but I don't really have the time. So anyway, it's good.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying it. I honestly think it got a bit shafted in the whole score front and when it got released and everything. I don't think it's as bad as everyone. Not that they say it's bad, but a lot of people wouldn't say it's good either. But I still maintain it's a lot better than its reputation, at least for me. Like,
I feel also that which was actually my case when the first trailer got revealed, people already found themselves like making like their own idea of the game or what they would like to see, and with each trailer, for example, my enthusiasm for the game like dwindled mainly
yeah.
because of how it was like a first person, and even though uh it kind of like tackles like Japanese horror, I feel like it could have been done in a different way that would have aligned itself better with my interest. So I
Mm.
guess a lot of people found themselves like wanting it to release but to be a different game altogether,
Yeah.
or like because the game is gorgeous. Like I've seen a screenshot of the game. It is gorgeous, but um I feel like a lot of people wanted something a little less like action packed and more either more stealthy or like something where you go through with more care in a way.
Mm. I think I know what you mean. And what it makes me think of is how this game is a little bit different, I think, to what anyone would expect,
Mm-hmm.
because it kind of does things its own way, even though it is basically like first person magic, horror themed Japan, Tokyo, for want of a better word. So you're just, cruising around the city, fighting. Well, they call them visitors, but they're basically like ghosts and demons and stuff, but in a very Japanese fashion.
Uh-huh.
And even yes, it looks amazing. It really, the fidelity is up there. But the actual gameplay loop, there's a lot of stealth sections. You can just spend a lot of time just purely exploring for things in the open world, and not just like collectibles to tick off boxes, but there are loads of side missions where you find spirits who are tied to a location, and they're tied there for various reasons that you have to discover, and then resolve for them to move on. Like, for instance, one of the very early ones that I remember was you find I think it's a guy, it's the spirit of a guy who died in a car crash. This is a little bit spoilery, but it's near the beginning, and it's one of the very first side quests you do. And it's not really spoiling anything major. But you find a spirit who is of a guy who died in a car crash, and he thinks that he's being cursed by a doll who has been cursed, and he's tried to take it to a shrine to basically have it cleansed, but the doll is possessed and has got up and buggered off. So he's like, can you help me out? Can you find the doll and, cleanse it and let me rest, kind of thing. So to do that, you do more of a detective kind of bit of gameplay where you have to find traces of where the doll's gone and follow the trail through the city, through a few blocks. And part of that is like a bit of navigation, because the doll kind of goes down between two buildings that you can't fit between. So you have to kind of go around and find an alternative route. And there's a lot of verticality in the game as well. You can go pretty much on top of every building in the city as well. And there's a lot of like staircases that go up and ladders and things so there's a whole like rooftop kind of area that you can explore. And you end up going up into the rooftops following this doll around, and you find the doll because you've been, following its tracks, and you end up finding it on top of a roof next to a kind of effigy that has like a voodoo kind of effigy that's what's basically poisoning it. You destroy the effigy to kind of cleanse the doll, and you find that the guy who died in the car crash, the doll's actually been possessed by his sister who had already died, and it was actually trying to protect him. And because he'd gone to try and cleanse it, that's why he got in a car crash anyway and was no longer protected and ended up dying. And so it wasn't that it was cursed at all. It was actually protecting him from a curse. And yeah, you end up resolving it all and going and talking to him and stuff, and he gets to move on and, reunite with his sister and all this kind of thing. And that's just like one little side quest that is quite different, because you're not doing investigation stuff most of the time, and you're not following trails and trying to, find quote unquote suspects or anything. And yeah, I feel like the game is hard to explain and understand for a lot of people. Not that's very much a bad thing probably against the game, because they're trying to do things a little bit differently that perhaps doesn't translate very easily. So, that's not necessarily a good thing. But I quite like that, because I like going through it and going, oh, I've never actually experienced this kind of gameplay before. And that's quite different. But I can see how it could be off-putting for a lot of people. And definitely, yes, you might see the trailers and think it's one thing and kind of play the game and go, oh, this is not what I was expecting at all. And it's actually a little bit different. And it's actually, there are sections where there's like lots of action, where you've got lots of enemies and you're dodging attacks and you're shielding yourself, and you're also parrying and attacking, and you've got like different attack types and things, and you've got different weapons eventually and all this kind of stuff. So it is very action focused for sections, but I feel like the game is very much different kinds of sections after one another. So when you might have a big action fight, it might then be followed up by a very kind of quiet exploration lore dump kind of session. And then you might do something really stealthy where you're sneaking around and trying not to get caught by big, powerful dudes who will take you out. And yeah, there's a lot of variety in there as well. But yeah, I don't know what it is about Ghostwire Tokyo, but every time I play it, I just want to play it some more. And which is that double-edged sword of, I'd love to sit down and spend a whole day playing it, but maybe one day I will. But knowing that I kind of don't end up playing it as much as I'd like to anyway. Which sounds silly, but I'm sure most gamers can relate to that kind of feeling. But yeah, that's Ghostwire Tokyo. I'm still playing it, and I'm looking forward to playing it some more, essentially. A game that really surprised me, though, which is another one I've picked up just randomly, is a mobile game, because I was looking around on Netflix, and I realized and I was reminded, hey, Netflix do games now, especially on mobile, and most of it's for mobile, to be fair. but they're actually not bad. There's a lot of good games on there. And as someone with a Netflix subscription, I'm like, hey, I should check these out because I've kind of already paid for them. And there's a lot of recognizable games on there, like, mobile versions of big names that we would know that you recognize. But I was in the mood for like a murder mystery kind of game. So I picked up a game called, there's a series of games called scriptic games, like cryptic, but also script. Yeah. And so I picked up, I picked up the first one, which is called Dead Man's Phone. And the first season, and I've been playing through season 1, Red Man, which is about, I think it's got like 8 episodes, and I've done the first 2, so I'm up to episode 3. And each episode takes about 45 minutes to an hour. And basically, it's one of those games which really utilizes the fact that you've got a phone in your hand, because that's the interface that you're using, kind of thing. So you're playing as like a detective who is, I forget what it's called, but it's called like Yard OS or something, like Scotland Yard. But the OS you're using is called Yard OS, and it's got a lot of FMV and pre-recorded audio and stuff. So you've got like a team who are on the ground of forensics people and coppers and like the coroner and all that kind of thing. And so through your phone, you can like contact them and ask them for CCTV footage of something, or ask them to check out the forensics behind a bit of evidence or stuff like that. Because essentially the story starts off with a guy has been found dead who's been pushed off a building, and he had his phone in his hand, and you get access to his phone. So a part of the game is you basically going through his actual phone and looking at his photos and his chats and everything else that's on there to get clues and trying to figure out kind of like who he's friends with, how they're feeling about each other, what's been happening, what was happening that night, who are persons of interest and all that kind of stuff. So you find all these clues and everything, and then you kind of relay them to your team. And the cool thing is things like you actually have phone calls with your police officers and stuff. They're all pre-recorded, obviously, so it's scripted, so to speak. But it's kind of fun because while you're playing, you might get a call and you have to like answer it, and then it'll be some copper going, "Oh yeah, so we've been checking out the scene and we found this and that," and blah, blah, and you get to choose like multiple choice responses, kind of thing, and ask them to do things for you, or incidents might happen while you're on the phone with them, and you can kind of make decisions for them. Like you might say, "Hey, you go check that out," and tell the other guy to go check out that other thing. And depending on what you choose, kind of obviously has different outcomes, all that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Sorry, that's kind of cool. Like it kind of reminds me of how on the Wii U was this one game that took advantage of the Wii U gamepad.
Yeah.
That is Zombie U, and
Yeah.
you play like on the main TV, but you have the Wii U to check on your inventory, but the game doesn't pause, so you have to hardly like organize things on the Wii U gamepad while you look at the screen, because a zombie can come in and unalive you at any moment.
Well, yeah, and it's that kind of thing of using, it's very immersive because it almost feels like a ARG or something, because you're playing someone who is basically on a phone doing stuff, and you in real life you're sitting there on your phone doing stuff. So you can even like interrogate suspects, because if you get them to like bring in a suspect, then there's an option where you can go to the interrogation room, and the way they set that up is that there's a sergeant kind of sitting in the room with the suspect, and you're remoting in. So they always start the interview by saying, "Oh, whatever your name is, so Avatage is remoting in today for this interview." And then you can as the interview goes on, you can ask questions and things. And it's got there's actors and everything involved. Like there's full motion video of stuff and actual photographs of people and all this kind of stuff that you have to kind of investigate.
That's
so it's really interesting. Yeah. The I guess the downside to it is it's fairly linear, at least so far. I don't know if there's anything that I could have really missed or messed up or got wrong along the way. There are a couple of decisions where that would change some outcomes, but as far as, the progression in the game, it's kind of, you find some evidence, you look at that evidence, whether that's, asking the forensics person to look at it and then seeing what the result is, and you might get a clue, points to a person, so you get them to bring in that person, so you interrogate them and you just kind of talk to them, and the interrogations can either be successful or not as successful depending on what you choose to say. And you can kind of tell from your choices, it's like, be really soft and kind, be mid-ground, or be really aggressive. And, so if you piss them off too much, they might not tell you anything. But if you're too kind of nice, they still might not tell you anything because you're not pushing them hard enough. So it's interesting in that sense, but it's also, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that the disappointing part is that it seems very kind of scripted and linear for the whole thing at the moment. I've only done the first 2 episodes, like I say, so I'm hoping it will there'll be a bit of branching kind of narrative here or there. But at the moment, it's still fun to play through, and it's still interesting to go along with the story and, see how things are. But it feels like it's kind of a little bit on rails, which, isn't great for a kind of detective game where you want to make choices and, try and solve it on your own. But it's cool. I'm very interested in playing the rest of it because, it's that kind of like, I love games like that. Like, I love hacking games where you're sitting at your computer at a terminal and that's the game.
Yeah.
However unrealistic it is, you're a person sitting at a computer. So it's like, oh, I am a person sitting at a computer. This is just like what I'm doing. I'm really in the game. And that kind of stuff. Or games like Her Story, where you're, again, someone sitting at a computer going through files and stuff. So, yeah, I love that kind of stuff anyway, because I find it really works on the whole immersive front because you're literally doing what your character's meant to be doing. So, yeah, that's Dead Man's Phone. I might check out some other Netflix games as well because if, they seem to be kind of quality and they've got some big names on there, but yeah, we'll see what happens. After last time, people may remember I played a clicker game called Space Plan. I replayed that. I kind of got looking at similar games. So I picked up a new one called The Norp Apologue, which is a weird name, and I don't really understand it. But
what the hell is an apologue?
It's basically a Gnorp, Gnorp, is a little dude. And in the game, you have little dudes. And there's a rock. And you get your dudes to hit the rock. And that makes shards fly off the rock. And then other little dudes go pick up the shards. And they take them. And then that's your currency to then buy more dudes or get more powers or, do the clicker thing and kind of upgrade everything.
Sorry, I was just thinking about the dwarves in Snow White because there were miners too. So.
Cool. These are a little bit different. But it's kind of fun because I've played it a fair bit because it's the kind of thing you can play while you kind of have it on while you're doing other things and just kind of look at it every now and then and, upgrade stuff. But it's cool in the way that there seems to be a lot of things to unlock and upgrade and change along the way. And part of the system is it's kind of a bit roguelike-y because you get to a point where you kind of need to prestige, where you reset everything, but you get skill points that you can then bank for extra skills, which kind of make the next run easier and better stuff that you can upgrade and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of interesting. But it's very much a clicker game. But it's kind of like if you're looking for a clicker game or an idle game with a bit more meat on its bones, this could be one. And it looks kind of cool too. So yeah, but it's very much an idle game either way. Additionally, after finishing Wreckfest last week, I was looking for another racing game to play. And I started playing Assetto Corsa, which, if anyone knows anything about sim racing games, Assetto Corsa is kind of well known and well respected in the sim racing game world. There's Assetto Corsa and then there's Assetto Corsa Competizione, which is a newer one. This one's quite old and it kind of shows. So I don't know if I'll finish it because there seems like there's a lot of game, but I don't know how much I'll last. It reminds me of like old Gran Turismo games, if for anyone who's played those, where you basically work your way. I'm playing the career mode, and you work your way up from like a shitty little Fiat kind of hatchback, and you eventually go up to like, you know, supercars and like crazy things that go really fast. But the annoying thing for me is I love playing racing games with my gamepad, and this game only supports gamepad in the actual race. When you're in menus and everything, you got to pick up that mouse and start clicking. And there's a few, you can tell it's like a sim racing game because a lot of the customization options and all that are geared towards people who have wheels and pedals to the point there's even like a UI element you can put on that shows you your pedal usage while you're hitting pedals. It's very good in that sense because every race you can totally customize the UI while you're racing. So you can put heaps of information on there, or you can take it all off. So you can have like, you know, tire gauges, so you can see how hot your tires are or cold, and how much they're wearing throughout the race. You can have like your split times and all that kind of stuff displayed or not. You can have, like I say, your pedals that you're pushing. You can have the standings of the race of all the races if that's the kind of race you're doing. You can basically turn all these things on and off, and even drag them around and put them wherever you like on the screen. So that kind of stuff is really cool, and I always appreciate that sort of thing. But I'm kind of a bit basic, I think, and I just want like the basic summary box, which they give you, that tells me, you know, what position I'm in, how many laps I have left, and how fast I'm going. I don't really care about the rest. But you do have to monitor things in this game like fuel consumption and obviously tire wear and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely leaning more on the simulation side as opposed to just go nuts and have fun side, which is perhaps why I don't know if I'll see it through the entire career mode, because the career mode is huge. There's like, I don't know, I want to say like 30 or 40 different events, and each event is like 5 or 6 races or more, up to 10 kind of races even. So that's a lot of stuff to get through. And especially because it's kind of, it does feel a bit funky, like using your mouse and everything, and then you kind of like hit go and quickly pick up your controller because the race is about to start. and that kind of thing always just annoys me a little bit. But it's very good. It's very much a good sim game, and I think the newer one is much friendlier, I guess, for different setups and that sort of thing. But the very last game I've been playing is one that I started a while ago, and I'm kind of annoyed because I started it up again today and my progress was missing. So don't know what happened there. Is a game called Dot Project, which I think you guys might have talked about in the podcast a while ago. It's like a 3D Picross game where...
Oh, yeah. Either Alex or Rick played this one.
Yeah, so you can imagine you've got like a space which is like a cube, but you can see on 2 planes, so like on the X and the Y, there's like a pattern that you have to complete by putting cubes in the center. So you can imagine if you put a cube in the middle, it's going to show up in the middle on the left and in the middle on the right. If you put it on the edge, but in the middle, it'll show that it's in the middle on one side, but it'll look like it's on the edge on the other side. So you're basically making these 3D cube shapes to try and fit both patterns that you're trying to match. It reminds me very much of like 3D modeling programs that I've seen, where you might have a 2D drawing of like a character from the front and then a 2D drawing of a character from the side. Yeah. And so you put them up in the scene and you start building the character in the middle because you can see kind of both sides and what it's meant to look like. It's kind of like that, except with cubes. And the best thing about this game, and the only reason I really wanted to mention it, because it's a pretty straightforward puzzle game, is the music, because the soundtrack is awesome. It's one of those games that I play and I want to listen to the soundtrack. Because for me, a lot of the time games like this, I will listen to the soundtrack and I'll go, that's nice, cool. But then I'll turn it off, and because it's a puzzle game where it doesn't require my moment-to-moment attention, I will probably throw something on my other monitor, like a podcast or a TV show or something else, and kind of, not worry about sound in my puzzle game and just listen to something else. But this one, actually, the soundtrack is so good that I actually enjoyed listening to it just on its own and not being distracted by anything else. So definitely recommend that. And yeah, there's always other things I'm playing, but that's the stuff I've been focusing on this week. And that pretty much does it. So let's get into our discussion topic for the day, for the week, which is Kickstarter and crowdfunding games. Essentially, like, you can kickstart pretty much anything, I guess, but we're mostly going to talk about games, I think, being that this is a gaming themed podcast.
Well,
so yeah, Paula, why don't you take it away and kick us off with some of your experiences?
Okay, so in my case, I haven't like kickstarted like a lot of games. Like I think I've only donated like $1 to one, and that was because I was interested in the project, but didn't but either didn't have the money or was interested enough to actually back it properly.
Mm-hmm.
And that was Kindred Fates, which at the time, if I remember correctly, was kind of like an MMORPG or something like that, or like an open world RPG, kind of like inspired by Pokemon. And
Okay.
at the time, it was like, oh, this game looks cool. I have acted all the way on February of 2020, just 2020, and the game isn't out yet, so it's been a while.
Mm-hmm. That's actually quite recent compared to some of mine, but go on.
Yeah. So in general, I've seen like a bunch of Otome games that are asking for funding. I've seen some of those, but they didn't like move the needle enough for me to splurge on them. There was actually one that I was quite interested in that was Beach Leaf of the Valley, but I only wanted like to uh, put my money into that project if I was able to get like a physical version of the game, which, if I remember correctly, you are able to get one. And I saw like a super special limited edition of the game that you were able like to try go and purchase. At the time, I did have the money to put towards the game itself. I did not have the money for shipping, so that dream sank before it was able to sell. And that's the thing in general with Kickstarters. For my case, since I live in Chile, a lot of countries or like a lot of people who kickstart stuff either go like with regular shipping without a tracking number, or they offer like a tracking number, but it is like I don't know, like DHL shipping for countries in Latin America, in South America. So that means that it costs not only a lot of money to ship, you also have to pay like 30% on import fees against the usual 25%, which is quite a lot of money. Money I'm not always keen on paying. So in general, I try to buy, like in general, when I'm kickstarting, I mean, I'm paying towards a Kickstarter, like a crowdfunding campaign. I usually try to keep things on the cheaper side, where my country won't try to charge me a stupid amount of money for import fees, or at the very least, like the shipping with the tracking is like cheap enough for me to like say, hey, I don't mind paying for that, and it will be like a couple of bucks if it gets caught on import hell. Which brings me to the other two Kickstarters that I funded, which are the Otome Game Boys and Heroines Enamel Pin Collection, Volume 1 and 2. I actually also funded Volume 3, but that one, I feel like at the time there was something going on in Kickstarter. and artists were like kind of trying to boycott it by using other platforms. So in particular, since that particular seller had a store, and not only that, they were like trustworthy enough. They just did like a Google Forms, and we paid them, and they chipped the enamel pins like when they were supposed to, and everyone was happy.
Cool.
So since here in the West we get like so little in terms of merchandising for otome games because they're like niche enough. Why is it at that if what the hell? Okay, let me just screen cap this so I can show you. Okay, they're just like cutesy little enamel pins that are like the face of the love interest in the game. And that was volume 1 in particular. Volume 2 added, let me count. Oh, those are quite a few of them. 14, 20 new designs. Volume 3, I think they added like 20 something new designs as well. Volume 4, for some reason, didn't get founded, so that was the end of it. Which was kind of sad because I really wanted like a couple of those pins. But in general, like with June, who is the Scratchen, who is the creator of these crowdfunding campaigns, like I think it's a she, but I'm gonna call them they just in case. So they are like very responsible with the shipping, and they always like update in case anything goes awry in the ordering process for the bins. So what happens once that was that they ordered the bins, but the manufacturer got wrong some of the colors. So
Oh, okay.
so June actually went and asked everyone who ordered those particular characters if they wish to wait a little bit longer for them to get like the proper colored characters, or if they wanted to cancel the order, or if they wanted like just the rest of the characters and stuff like that. So they were like quite accommodating in the sense of if something goes wrong, they immediately tell you and they give you like a bunch of options on these things you can do. So they're like very, I don't know, if they made another Kickstarter and back them like in a heartbeat, like no questions asked. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I don't usually kickstart games themselves because of developing hell. Like whenever you have the backing of a community, uh, like in terms of monetary stuff, it often happens that um, you have to, or like some developers feel that they have to put it on stretch goals for
Yeah.
when they try to develop a game. So in case they reach a certain stretch goal, they have to do more on the game because they got more money for it.
Yep.
So that means there's a lot of situations where they either try to put too much in the game, called feature creep, or or on the other hand, they try to do things quickly, or like so because they have people waiting for the product and that already paid for the product. Or you have like some weird in between. So I don't know which one. I think it was, I don't know which case the Banner Saga falls upon, but
Mm.
I remember it was a Kickstarter game, and I got it on sale a while after it got released, and I just didn't see the appeal of the game. Um, like yeah, the art and the overall presentation of the game was pretty good, but the way they tried to do like a multiple route thing, it didn't land well with me. Besides, uh, like I have no issue with visual novels or with games that are text heavy, but by the with the way the text was presented to the player, sometimes it was like very, very worthy in a way that it seems like, in a way that it got boring. Like they use like very specific words that um, didn't, like, I guess you're talking with other characters and making political decisions and all that jazz. But when you use either old English or like a very specific kind of English that is like way too polite, my mind just grows numb. That combined of the with the names of the various characters that were like really memorable in a way. Like you can have like foreign names, but you can pick them in such a way that they are more memorable to the player or like easier to remember, because I know like some foreign games that have some very weird letter combination. Just keep it. Let's just keep to that. But yeah, like the way the game was filled, the story felt quite sluggish, and the gameplay, even though they had good ideas for the gameplay, the depth of the gameplay itself was very, very shallow.
That's
Uh,
that's really interesting to me to hear what you think of Banner Saga, because I backed that from the
oh,
get-go on Kickstarter. Well, and it's interesting because you picked it up afterwards, you said, like after it came out.
yeah,
Yeah, and because to me, the Banner Saga is one of the big success stories of Kickstarter for me, because I backed
it
it
came
and I
out.
got, well, not only it came out, but I got exactly what they promised me.
Yeah.
And when they pitched the game, I remember they had examples of all those different gameplay styles and that were going to be in it. They had like not a demo you could play, but a demo that they showed you. Like, this
Mm-hmm.
is us. These are the systems we're working on. This is the kind of gameplay we're working on. These are the conversation trees, this kind of stuff. This is the art style and the music and everything, because they already had that nailed down. And they were just looking for backing to, because it was 3 guys who used to work in other companies,
Uh-huh.
and they broke off to make the Banner Saga, which obviously then they went on and made Banner Saga 2 and 3, which I think they also crowdfunded. But yeah, to me, they were a huge success because they delivered on time and they delivered exactly what I was expecting. And I was very, very happy with it. And I love the game because I think it's fantastic. But it's interesting, though, to hear, it sounds like you're almost comparing it a bit with like more of a visual novel style or that kind of gameplay, which never actually occurred to me, even though there is text and there's a lot of reading and stuff in parts. I'd never think of a game like the Banner Saga as being a visual novel at all. And it's interesting to hear you talk about like how they implemented routes and that sort of stuff, because again, I never thought about it as having routes either. It's just there are choices you make in certain parts of the gameplay that change essentially how it unfolds, but I wouldn't think of it being like I didn't make a choice, so therefore I need to go back and try that and, see what happens if I do make that choice. Because
Uh-huh.
a lot of those choices kind of come up randomly as well. Like there's a bit of RNG in there of, different events and things that will either help or hinder your group of people.
Yeah. Like in a way, I I would usually like say the Banner Saga is more of a tactical RPG rather than a visual novel. But since to me the combat seemed very shallow compared to other tactical RPGs that I play, like Shin Megami Tensei Overclock or Fire Emblem or even Wargroove and stuff like that. I feel like the focus of the game is less the encounters themselves and more like the story. So that's why I thought it was like a visual novel first and a tactical RPG later, like after that.
Yeah. Again, that's interesting to me because I don't know if I would compare it with like something like Wargroove or other kind of, like, say, tactical RPGs or anything. Like that part of the gameplay, like obviously the story stuff
Yeah.
is different, but the combat, and I actually thought the combat was really engaging. And so, fair enough, we've got different opinions, but that's why I think it's interesting. But
Yeah.
because to me the combat is well, not only it was really challenging, because especially towards the end of the game, there are like fights where you can't win and you have to spend like 20 retries to try and get the perfect kind of synergy of all your dudes in order to beat some of the final big boss kind of characters. But every all of your characters, they have all different things. Like they've all got different adjacency bonuses and stuff. So I found it really satisfying because there was so much tactics in it compared to, well, Wargroove I've played, and that to me felt like I basically didn't have to think at all to to get through the fights kind of thing. It's just, okay, A beats B, so it's very rock, paper, scissors kind of to me, and didn't really take a lot of planning, put it that way. It's just kind of like reacting to whatever the enemy did. Whereas the Banner Saga combat for me was very much planning, because like there are certain characters, if they're standing next to other certain characters, then they get bonuses to defense and or attacking. There are characters with certain move bonuses as well if they're next to different things or next to an enemy or something. And so yeah, it's almost it feels like playing chess almost, like, to me. And that kind of tactical and strategic, you know. So it's really interesting just hearing how we had different experiences, because I wonder if my experience is more tied to, because I followed the whole development cycle, and so I was very familiar with all the systems in the game and how they'd been put together and kind of what the purpose was and all that kind of thing. So when I went to play it, I kind of was looking for all of that and utilizing all that as well. Like when I was playing the combat and stuff, I knew that all these different units had different things going on. And so I kind of used that to my advantage. But maybe it wasn't that clear for someone who didn't pay attention to all that stuff. I don't know.
Which is interesting because I actually paid close attention like to all the systems, because I like to take advantage of the systems while I play tactical games.
Mhm.
But I didn't feel like I needed them.
Mhm.
Like, well, in Warrior in particular, I don't know how you played, but I tried to go like for the 3-star rating every time.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
So yeah, that put like that extra difficulty. So I had to get a craftier with the stuff I was trying to do, because yeah, I played like in both modes, I guess. If you're only trying to go through the story, Worker is like pretty easy. But if you're trying to go for the stars, that's where things get more difficult. So I guess like for someone who doesn't care about the stars, like it is a more casual experience, I'm gonna say, though
Yeah.
I hate that word.
Yeah.
The case for the Banner Saga, like I found some of the things about the combat like innovative, in the sense of that you had the shield that you have to break first before actually dealing damage.
Yeah.
And also you had units that use a different amount of spaces. Which when I started the game, and I remember talking about this with Rick and Alex, I said, hey, this is kind of different to what I'm actually used to. So I'm looking forward to playing this game. And at the end of the game, I was like, yeah, no. I might try to play the Vanilla Saga 2, which I tried and retired. Uh, Maybe like the system didn't vibe with me, or I don't know, I couldn't explain
Yeah.
our difference of opinion, because I have no idea.
Oh, and
But
it could just be a question of different tastes as well. Like, like
yeah.
I typically hate turn-based fighting systems in RPGs, like your typical Final
um,
Fantasy fighting style and all that, where you select attack and then you select your attack, and I hate that stuff, like with a passion. So, I probably have a different approach to those sorts of things to other people anyway. So,
yeah. Though the part where you had bonuses depending on who was like by the side of whom, and that reminded me of Valkyria Chronicles, which I am yet to finish, but like each unit in Valkyria Chronicles has like bonuses depending on which kind of character they're like close to.
yeah.
Or sometimes like anti bonuses.
Yeah.
But yeah, like but I don't know, like I just didn't buy with the motorcycle. Like it has, and it was, and I was actually like sad it didn't buy with me because I heard like so many good things about the game, and it
Yeah.
seemed like right up my alley, but it wasn't.
I wonder if, like you say, like things are lost in translation as well, being that, um, you know, obviously English is a second language for you, no matter how you are very fluent in it either way. But I wonder if having, like you say, like weird names and stuff, because there was a lot of Scandinavian kind of words and names in there
Yeah.
that I didn't find it a struggle, to be honest. Like I was just reading it going, oh yeah, cool. But maybe as a, you know, second language speaker, it is a little bit harder to keep track of. Like it might not be very accessible for people who aren't native speakers, maybe. I don't know.
Dude,
But
because that does happen a lot to me, like with certain kind of names, I'm gonna say.
mm,
Like, um, actually, this is like a funny story. For example, for Korean and Chinese web comics, here in Latin America, we actually have like nicknames for the characters because no way in hell we're gonna remember like the actual pronunciation of each character. So, like of each name.
yeah.
So, um, so that could be like one thing. Like, since I don't remember the names, I don't know like who the hell was insert weird ass name here. They were talking about. So that could impact like my, at the very least, my enjoyment of the uh story driven slash visual novel esque part of the story or part of the
Mm,
game. Well, and this is very interesting. But for example, I have like zero problems remembering like Japanese games because like phonetically, it is Japanese is similar to Spanish.
yep.
Um, and I usually don't have trouble with English names unless they're like the old uh, names that have gone out of usage, or
Mm,
they are like I was like watching an anime where the names were based like on Europe and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, I'm Duchess such and such from such and such, and I'm like, yeah, no, you're just Risha because no way in hell I'm remembering the rest of the game, the name. So
yeah.
like, yeah, when I like when my mind can't comprehend the pronunciation of a word, it usually just blanks it.
Yeah.
So that actually happened to me with Banner Saga a lot with the names.
Mm. Well, and I can imagine that would make it harder to enjoy then, just in general.
Yeah.
And yeah, the reason I think of that is just, you know, from I spent a while teaching English as a second language, and one thing that people struggled with was always like you say, like older language or older versions of English that have different grammar and different kind of ways of putting words together, for want of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
um, Basically, a different lexicography. And we've changed it obviously since then, and modern English is very different to English was like 300 years ago. So
Yeah.
it can be very confusing, I know, as a second language, even though that's just from, teaching people English before in the past. So,
Also, there's this thing with English where similar words like where they're like written in a very similar way can have the the wildest differences in how you pronounce it. Like we
mhm.
actually I don't remember like the name of the characters right now, but sometimes before recording, I would go to Rick and Alex with like a particular name that I'm struggling with. It's like, hey, how you pronounce this? Because it looks like Cian or something like that. No, it's Sean, and I'm like, where is the H here that makes the C turn into Sean? Uh,
Yep.
yeah.
But I'm sure we could have a much deeper discussion about the Banner Saga and languages and stuff maybe another time.
Yeah.
But let's get back to kickstarting and crowdfunding.
Whoops.
I love a tangent, but let's steer that ship back on. I just wanted to say I really like crowdfunding as a concept, and I feel like that's why when Kickstarter was like getting popular for like around like the 2010s, I want to say Kickstarter kind of really boomed, and it seemed like every game was kickstarted around that time, like around 2012, 13, 14. And that's when I backed most of the stuff that I've backed because I really like it. I think it's a really good, at the time it was kind of a way to cut between publishers and developers and basically go, we don't need a publisher. We don't need backing and money and stuff. We're a little developer and we've got this weird idea and the audience is just going to pay for it up front and we'll make it. And then that's good. And I kind of really like that. That's a cool idea. And it kind of turned into what we now know as early access, because a lot of early access games now are games that are essentially using it as like a crowdfunding platform where they've made an alpha version, but they're putting it out there for everyone to start funding them so that they can continue and finish the game and, you know, hopefully complete it and bring it out. And that kind of brings me to an example of a Kickstarter game, which is exactly that idea, but also what I would consider a complete failure as a crowdfunded game, which is, I'm looking at my Kickstarter page and it's just still called on Kickstarter the Double Fine Adventure. This is the game that ended up becoming Broken Age, which is a point-and-click adventure made by the developer Double Fine, who features Tim Schafer from, you know, they did LucasArts games back in the day like Day of the Tentacle, Grim Fandango, Full Throttle, those sorts of games. Brutal Legend was one of Tim Schafer's games. He's known for making funny point-and-clicks, essentially. And so his company, along with another old school classic LucasArts developer, Rod Gilbert, I think. Is it Rod Gilbert? Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. They have had a studio called Double Fine Adventure, Double Fine, and they put out this Kickstarter video, which was basically a funny video because it's Tim Schafer and he's a bit of a comedian anyway. And the video is basically, hey, we used to make really old school point and clicks like Day of the Tentacle and that sort of thing. And we kind of want to make another one, but no publisher wants to give us any money. So that's why we're kickstarting it. And they said, we just want to make an old school point and click, nothing fancy, just as it was back in the day. If you played them in the 90s, you know exactly what you're going to get. And, you know, this is how much money we think we need. And they went through it and they were trying to raise something like $400,000 or something to make the game. And it was so successful that they ended up, the Kickstarter made like $3 million or something.
Damn.
Yeah. And then that's when all the problems started because they then made it, the scope increased. It became way larger than it ever was meant to be. Like in the initial pitch video, Tim Schafer says, hey, if we make $400,000 for the Kickstarter, I don't know what this game is going to be. It could be a really short game. It could be, you know, really limited in features and everything, but we'll make a point and click with whatever money we get and it'll be in that style. And hey, if we get $400,000, we can probably make something small and cool for the people who really want it. So then they obviously made $3 million plus. And there's actually a really good documentary series, which I would recommend anyone watch if you're into game development, about the making of Double Fine Adventure. It's a whole series of videos. There's like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of footage because they documented the entire process for better or worse, because about halfway through making the game, they ran out of money. And
how do you run out of that much money?
This is the thing. The scope just blew out so much. Feature creep went so out the window. They had to release the game in 2 parts because they finished the first half of the game and ran out of money. So then they sold that to then fund the second half of the game. And it's just, in my mind, it's a complete disaster. Even though the game did get finished and released, it's just, yeah, not what I backed, essentially. And it was no longer an old school point and click or anything. It was just this new thing, which didn't look like it was from the 90s or anything, and was totally different to what they pitched. So in my mind, that was a complete failure because they basically, I'm glad they actually finished the game and released it because, at least we got something for what we backed. But my God, it's really fun watching the doco because there's they talk about, we've run out of money. We've spent $3 million and we're only halfway finished and we don't know how we're going to pay for the rest of the game. And as frustrating as that is to watch as a backer, and I'm sitting there going, just give me my fucking game. It's really interesting because at the end of the day, I think they were genuinely trying to do a good job and they were genuinely trying to use the money that they raised and make something of that quality. But obviously they just fucked up and they had to rethink how they did everything. And to that end, they did do right by people, as in you got what you paid for if you did buy into it in the Kickstarter thing. Like, as in I backed it so on the tier that basically gave me the game, just straight up. So when the game came out, I got it and I'm happy about that. But it took much, much longer than it was intended, cost way more money than it was intended. And yeah, it was a really interesting kind of case study, I think, for Kickstarters, because it was also one of the first Kickstarted games that really did blow out that much money-wise. Like, up until then, I don't think Kickstarter was like a super massive thing for games, but this Double Fine Adventure is the instance where it became like everyone now wants to get their game kickstarted because it just kind of it blew out the water. And yeah, they made $3 million when they were only looking for like 400 grand or something. So it was a huge deal. And interesting, the next one that I backed after that, probably before that one was released, was the Banner Saga. And as I said before, that's one of the ones that I'm like, huge success story in my book. Mostly because, forget the game, whether you like the game or not, but they were very clear at the beginning about what they wanted to do. They already had a demo, kind of a prototype, like an alpha version. They explained what they were doing. They were very good at communicating with everybody during the process. They, I think they delivered pretty much on time. They might have been like a month late to what they said. It was all very kind of easy, is what I want to say. Like, I backed them. They did what they said they were going to do. And then I got the game and I was happy. And the game was exactly what I expected.
I'm going to say, like, even in the traditional gaming industry, just being 1 month late is actually like being right in time, because holy crap,
Yeah.
we've seen some delays, especially out after the pandemic.
Oh, and this is what I mean. Like, that's why I think it was the most successful Kickstarter that I've backed, because of that. Because it was just, nothing went wrong. Everyone who backed them, I think, was happy because they all got what they ordered. I didn't. I backed it to just get the game. I didn't back it to get any of the extra physical stuff, which they had lots of. And they had lots of cool stretch goals as well, where you could get yourself in the game as well if you spent heaps of money. You could actually come down and hang out with them for like the day while they're developing and stuff, and do some, like, contribute some ideas and stuff to the game if you paid heaps of money as well. And so they did all that kind of stuff, which I think is fun, but I'm never going to pay for. Compared to one of the worst experiences I've had backing a game is for a visual novel, actually. For the visual novel game version of the webcomic Mega Tokyo, which I don't know if anyone really knows what Mega Tokyo is these days, because the death of this Kickstarter was kind of like the death of the comic as well.
Oh.
Because it was a big, remains to be a big kind of controversy in my mind anyway. Because again, there's this webcomic called Mega Tokyo. I really like it. It's just a fun American style manga. So it's a Western manga in that sense, because it's written by an American dude. And it's essentially about the two American characters who go to Tokyo, and they, through, wacky circumstances, they get stuck there and can't leave. So they've got to kind of make a living and, live their lives and, so on and so forth. And they go on adventures and stuff. And it's very kind of video game related and that kind of thing. Like, to the point, one of the characters, to get into the country, has to defeat a champion at Mortal Kombat to get through customs. And they do, because they're elite and all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, this one, what really annoyed me about it was it still hasn't been finished, the visual novel for that matter, and I backed it in 2014. So it's been 10 years now.
Damn.
I have no idea where it's at either because I stopped following it. And one of the biggest thing that annoys me that they did was they basically took all the progress updates and everything that they were making on through the Kickstarter project, which means if you backed it, you got notified every time there was an update.
Mhm.
And they took all of that and put it on their own website. So no one ever got updated because they just started updating on their own website and not updating through the Kickstarter platform, which just pisses me off because I can forgive a lot of things if you communicate with me. Like, if you tell me things are not going well, at least I know and I don't really care then. It's like, okay, cool. And as it happens, after doing some research, the main guy who makes the comic, like draws it and writes it and was working on the visual novel, basically he had a whole lot of issues and a lot of personal family issues and health issues and stuff that delayed it by like years. And the whole time he's saying, I'm still going to work on it. I'm still doing it, rah, rah, rah. But then he ran out of money because he spent all his money on his health issues instead of the game, which I don't really blame him for, but that's kind of dumb. You're taking other people's money and spending it on things that they didn't want you to spend it on initially.
Yeah.
Like, that's not why they gave you that money. And it's just been in development hell ever since. And I don't even want to research it now because I don't want to know if they're still pretending like they're still making it, basically, because that's what it feels like. They're just lying to everyone saying, oh, we're still making it. And they do stuff like it was only going to take a year to make, but a year later, nothing had been made. And they're like, oh, don't worry, in a month we'll have a demo for people to play and check out so you can see what the game's going to be like. And a year later, they still hadn't done that. And all these things, like milestones that they were going to meet, they never met. And it was just like, yep, okay, I'm never getting that money back. So again, I'm glad I only backed it on the level that would give me the game because I remember hearing someone on a podcast say once, and it's my mantra for Kickstarter was never back something for an amount of money that you can't afford to lose.
Yeah. And I'm looking at the Kickstarter page right now, and some people donated $2,000 to the
Yeah.
development of the game.
Yeah, it's
Press
insane.
Press F to pay respects.
And hey, if you've got that much money to lose, then good luck to you, kind of thing. That's fine if that's your bag, but that's not my bag. And
Yeah.
that will also, I'll shut up in a second, but that will then bring me to another game that I did back originally that you may have heard of called Star Citizen.
You've heard about that one.
Star Citizen is apparently still being developed, but I backed it on Kickstarter for, again, one of the lower tiers. It was about $30, I think I backed it for. In November of 2014, the game is still in alpha, and it is the most profitable crowdfunded game in the history of crowdfunded games. They've made like hundreds of millions of dollars at this point, and the game hasn't even been finished being made.
Wait, what? Is it like on the early access on Steam or something?
No, it's an alpha that you can download and play sections of it from their website. It's not on Steam, I don't think.
No, it's not. I just check.
Like, I have an account that I can log in and download it, what they've made so far if I want to. But they pissed me off so much that I kind of refuse to because I don't want to play their stupid game until it's actually finished. But then, can I just... Let me tell you about their latest DLC that they have for sale, which... you know how Kickstarters have...
It isn't finished.
Yeah. People have invested in this game. This is like the space open world EVE Online, but understandable kind of MMO action sci-fi game that everyone wanted, but still has not been made 10 years later. However, they've made hundreds of millions of dollars. They're the richest kind of kickstarted crowdfunded game ever. Just this year, they released a everything pack, because you can buy like ships that you can use in the game and, different hangars for your ships and all that kind of stuff. Like, you can buy add-ons for the game, even though it's not finished. It's still apparently in alpha. That's what they say. but they released the everything pack where you basically get everything, like every ship that's available, every add-on and all that kind of thing. Have a guess at how much it costs. Just have a random guess.
It's in the thousands, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Go crazy. Go wild. It's everything you can get in the game.
Everything you can get in the game. Is it like a 50,000?
Close. It's 40,000 American dollars, which
Excuse
translates
me?
to about 60,000 Australian dollars, which is about how much money you need if you want to put a deposit on a house in reality. And they
But
have that as DLC. Yeah.
like, I know it's the printer. I'm just gonna say it's the printer, but it's like my brain is not working. It started like rebooting or something. The timing was
Yep.
just perfect.
Exactly. And to be fair, that pack is obviously not targeted at everybody, but the fact that they even have it, to me, the whole Star Citizen, I could do a whole episode about Star Citizen, how much I hate it and how much I want my $30 back. Because, again, they pitched a game that they were going to make in a couple of years. They were going to develop it. One of the guys working on it was one of the original Wing Commander developers. So, like, one of his credentials was like Space Combat, and I think it was Wing Commander or something similar. And so, you know, bit of pedigree there with a good developer who's proven himself in the past. And they pitched this game of kind of a mix between like first-person shooter, kind of space exploration, kind of Mass Effect, but meets a bit of Halo almost, or, you know, but this persistent online kind of world. Yeah. 10 years later, they still are in alpha and are just raking in the money, and this game's never going to come out, and it pisses me off to all as much as it can, because to me it's just like, what an arrogant bunch of developers who continue taking obscene amounts of money for 10 years and never actually finish the game that they promised to deliver 10 years ago. It's just like, get over yourself, dudes. Make the shit you said you would make.
Yeah, like I don't think I'm ever gonna complain about the Sims for a super complete expansion pack that is like $1,000, because at the very least the game is out.
Well, and there's a really easy solution to this. They could have made something and released it ages ago, which was what you crowdfunded, what you kickstarted, and then continued developing it and adding to it and making it bigger and, you know, so on and so forth, which then perhaps you have to buy as an expansion pack because you didn't kickstart that part of it. That would be okay with me. I wouldn't mind that. I'd understand that. You know, things cost money. That's fine. But just, it makes me angry. Not a lot makes me that angry, but it's like, I don't have a nice thing to say about those developers, because yes, they're making heaps of money and I'm sure they're loving it because they basically are not making a game while earning hundreds of millions of dollars for it. But yeah, it's a big middle finger to their customers, I think, who, especially the ones who originally backed them to get their stupid little idea off the ground and had their good face to give them the money. It's like, come on, guys, it's a two-way street.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, it's everything that's wrong with crowdfunding, in my view, is developers who don't appreciate the fact that people have gone out of their way to give them money for a promise. And I get that when you give money to someone, it's as good as gone, and maybe things happen and it'll never get finished. But when that comes out of just what I see as pure arrogance, like not even mismanagement, but just being so far up their own ass, they can't just finish what they started.
Yeah.
It's annoying. So yeah, that was one of the projects that made me stop backing anything on Kickstarter, because nowadays you can't convince me to back anything, because it's gone sour enough times that I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm just never going to do it. I've had some good experiences, especially with other stuff like board games or comics or that kind of stuff, which I've backed. They've all been great. I've got exactly what I paid for. I've got it exactly on time. It's been brilliant. But yeah, you could never get me to back another game as long as I live. I'll rather just wait until it comes out, and then maybe I'll buy it and maybe I'll play it.
Yeah, games are a different kind of forms on the Kickstarter community. That's why I've decided to only back them on early access if they're on Steam. And if I feel like the experience I get is fun enough for me to back the game at that point in time,
Yes.
like Timberborn, which was my one of my latest obsessions, but
Yep.
also Slime Rancher because that game is just so wholesome and cute and it kills my soul. So yeah.
But yeah, my final thoughts for Kickstarter stuff, even though I've ranted enough already, is I really like the idea of it because, like I said at the top, for a little developer who perhaps doesn't have any money and has a cool idea, but it isn't big enough for a whole publisher to get behind them. I think it's a really cool way, like with early access, for those ideas to actually get made and to find their way to the people who actually want to play it. And if the people who want to play it can actually fund it, then why not do that and make it purely for the people who funded it, even if no one else ever plays it. Cool, you've done that. It's great. And I want to use one other example, which was actually a failed Kickstarter that I actually liked. Was a game called Collateral, which I backed in 2014. It was a single Australian developer, I think, who pitched it. And it's kind of like a cyberpunk taxi game where
Okay.
it's a bit like The Fifth Element, where it's like flying cars through a polluted city and all that kind of stuff. It's quite interesting. But it didn't succeed because after about a year of development, the guy who was making it basically said, look, I've put as much as I can into it. I can't keep doing it because I can't afford to eat anymore. And I need to go basically get a job and I won't be able to finish this game. So I'm really sorry. But he basically gave everyone what he had already made and just sent it to the Kickstarter backers and said, look, I'm really sorry. You can play this. There's some quests and stuff you can play and you can kind of noodle around in the game a bit. It's just not finished is all. So what you ended up with was basically a sandbox kind of prototype of what the game was going to be. And even though I backed it for like $20 and obviously it didn't get finished, because the dude was honest and upfront and throughout the process had been keeping everyone in the loop and had obviously been working very hard on it and all that kind of thing, and then gave you what he had been working on, it was a nice way for it to fail, if you want to call it that. Yeah, so I kind of like that. That was a good kind of failure. Whereas one more last thought was a game called Black Room, which I backed but got cancelled in another way that kind of pissed me off and made me dislike the developers. So you may have or may not have heard of John Romero, who John Romero is infamous as a developer because he's one of the people who invented Doom and Wolfenstein 3D and those games. And a game called Daikatana, which literally had these tagline, which went something like John Romero is going to kick your ass or something. So he's a very famous developer in that sense because he's been around forever and done some amazing things. And Adrian Carmack, who also worked on Doom and is, I think, the brother of John Carmack, who is, again, very famous and worked on Doom. John Romero and Adrian Carmack announced they were going to make a new FPS called Black Room. And they had a trailer and everything that they'd made and all this kind of stuff. I couldn't back it fast enough because I love those games. Like, their pedigree is just amazing. I love Doom. I love all the stuff they've done. But the Kickstarter started. I backed it immediately. They were only asking for like 750 grand or something. I say only, but that's less than some other games. But because in the first couple of days, the Kickstarter didn't go viral and they didn't make like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in the first couple of days, they cancelled the whole thing, said, oh, we're not going to make it anymore because obviously there's no support. Even though there was like a whole month in the campaign left. And they made like they had made like 200 grand in of backing. But typically, but Kickstarter's like they get a lot of funding at the beginning and they get a lot of funding at the end because that's when people think about it. So the initial boost of funding that they got was like 200 grand. They were like, well, we wanted 300 grand. So obviously this has failed and they just pulled the plug. And I'm like, excuse me?
Why?
What? Why don't you just let it run for the course of the month? And sure, if it doesn't succeed, then fine. It doesn't succeed. But maybe it will. I don't know. Maybe someone's waiting to get paid in a few days before they actually back your thing. Like, I know that's something I always think of when I'm spending money on anything. I might wait a week because I'm waiting until I get paid my next paycheck. Because I have a budget that I live by, like most people do.
That part, that part of, hey, I kind of need money to it.
Yeah. I don't just have
That's
cash
kind of
lying around that
important.
I can throw at random game developers willy-nilly, you know. But yeah, so I do think these days early access has kind of replaced it because it seems a little bit more reliable than a, pipe dream kind of Kickstarter project.
Definitely.
But yeah, I feel like I've said way too much already. So any final thoughts from you, Paula?
Yeah, my final thought is that you have to be careful with what you're backing. Try to think about how the project was born, why the developer wants to develop the project, and stuff like that. Otherwise, you get something like Yandere Dev with Yandere Simulator and stuff like that. An idea born in 4chan or something like that. The Yandere Dev jumped on it, and it turned out that not only he was like a very incompetent developer, he was also an asshole. Like, he was sent people to try to fix his code, help him out, and he wanted none of it. So yeah, usually I'll go with early access because it is, as you said, more reliable. You have a build of the game, and you can only get better from there. And usually you can like give feedback on the game and stuff like that. Otherwise, yeah, games on Kickstarter are the wild west of gaming, pretty much.
Yeah, and as someone once said that I mentioned already, if you are going to back something, as soon as you do, imagine you've lost that money forever.
Yeah, you're not seeing that money again. Hopefully you're seeing something out of it, but the money is gone forever.
But who knows? You might not. All right, let's play a guessing game.
Yeah.
Paula, your turn to quiz me. Let's do it.
Okay,
I'm ready.
So this particular game that you've completed has the average main story time of 5 hours. Though this person in particular took 3 hours and 48 minutes and says a few optional memories collected.
Memories, you say?
Yeah.
Okay, 5-hour game that has memories to collect. Oh, so I'm thinking. Oh, it sounds so familiar. Is it? No, that would be too short, I think. Is it something like I Am Dead? No?
Nope.
Okay. Memories collected. Ooh. It's not Edith Finch.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Well, by that token, I want to say Ethan Carter as well.
Nope.
I don't want to just guess like random shots, but it was kind of sending me that way. Memories that you collect and you can miss. That seems very important and very relevant. And like I should know what that is. Nah, hit me with the next one.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. I kind of want to give you like another of the another of the main quest, or I mean only comments, but I'm still looking. Oh no, that's way too spoilery.
Yeah, that'll do, that one. Collecting memories. Could it be like, oh, what's that game? Is there a game called Remember Me?
Nope.
Okay. That feels so familiar. Like a
Does it ring a bell?
It's ringing so many bells, but none that I know what they're saying. Like it's one of those ones that's like it's annoyingly familiar. Like I know I should know this.
Okay, I think I got the comment that I want, but I lost it. Okay, this might be it. So for main plus, the time is 6.5 hours. But this person in particular took 5 hours and 18 minutes. It says most memories, all batch, sheet music, and plants. Music sheets, I guess they're referring to.
Memories, sheet music, plants.
And badges.
Badges, good lord.
I think it's all batch music sheets, but I'm not sure.
It's not cheer?
No.
Badges? Oh man, that's even worse. I feel like I really should know what this is.
Hey.
Good lord. Music. Badges. Memories. What was the other thing?
Plants.
Plants. That's weird as well. Plants. Oh, I feel my brain folding in on itself. Plants though. I was going to say, is it like an Assassin's Creed game?
Nope.
But yeah, I don't think it would be. Is it something like, what was that? What was that game? No, there's no plants in that one we're talking about. I keep thinking of things, but it's like missing something very significantly. Wow.
Would you like another hint?
I think I'm going to have to, otherwise I might be here all night.
Okay, so for this one, for the 100% or completionist time, is around 10 hours. This person in particular took 10 hours and 26 minutes. It says, all trophies except the I Am Speed trophy. Chapters replay to get Can Catch Me and Sneak Kitty.
Touch 10 hours.
I'm gonna send you like the comment because it has some cat puns on it.
Okay. So, what's that game called? That recent one with the robots.
Okay.
Oh, what's it called?
Describe the game, please.
Where you play as a cat and there's like robots and you've got like a little robot that goes with you. And
okay, it is that one.
Yeah, what's that called? It's like a one-word name. Stray, that's it.
You got it.
I don't remember there being plants in that.
I don't know. There were like a couple of like I haven't gotten that far yet, so I didn't even know there were like memories. But
memories I remember.
I mean, you do remember those, I guess.
Hey. Yeah.
Yeah, there were like a couple of comments mentioning plants, but most of them are mentioned like music sheets, which I thought was gonna be the giveaway there.
Yeah. It was on the tip of my tongue. Like it really was. I was reminded of it, but I couldn't remember that it was called Stray. But it was formed in my head in some distant land that I wasn't tapping into.
Yeah, and there were like another like fan trophy names that were mentioned in the comments. Well, one of them was sleep for an hour, and I think, well, that's very self-explanatory.
Yeah.
But the I am speed, it seems to be like the speedrun
Yeah.
collectible.
Oh, goodness me. Okay. Yeah. Good game.
I have to
I
go back to it because it was quite fun.
Yeah, if you haven't finished it, I would say definitely go finish it because it's good and it's not too long. I'm actually surprised. Yeah, 10 hours for completionist, but feels like that's long. But yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Actually, let me check real quick my time with the game. Yeah, I played this game for 2 hours and 80 minutes so far. And I
Mm,
have to say, like, I'm just out of the first area. Like,
yeah,
oh, and I got the catapult achievement.
nice. Yeah, awesome. Well, I'll take a 1 point then for this one.
Mm-hmm.
So we're even Stevens, 1 point each. We both had a rough time.
It's gonna be interesting.
That's cool. That's cool. That was yeah. Oh man. If anyone listening is ever wondering what it's like, I suggest trying it out with somebody. Get them to quiz you sometime because you don't remember nearly as much as you think you would.
Yeah, I thought this one would be an easier one because it is quite a newer game. So,
Well, that's what I mean. Like, it definitely was ringing all the bells, but just couldn't quite get my finger on it.
well, the cat is out of the bag now, so you know what it is.
Hey. And with that bombshell,
No.
let's wrap it up. Yeah. So, as always, thanks everyone for listening. If you got any comments or anything, we always welcome them. Feel free to leave them wherever you can. But yeah, for now, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye bye.
Memories I remember.
I I mean